Cheating ex-wife tried breaking into my home but got arrested. Hello, true story. My name is Dustin. I'll try to lay this out from the beginning so it makes sense, and I'll warn you in advance. It's a long one. I met my ex-wife back in 2021, not long after I bought my house. That's part of why this whole thing has stung as badly as it did. This house was something I worked my tail off for. I'd been saving for years, working extra hours, cutting back on luxuries, skipping vacations, and just grinding because I didn't come from a family with money. When I finally signed the paperwork and got the keys, I was proud of myself. I was 29 years old, standing in the living room of a house that was actually mine. About 2 months after moving in, I decided to check out the gym in the area. That's where I ran into her. She actually lived in the apartment complex just around the corner from my neighborhood. She walked up to me while I was racking weights and made a joke about how I looked like I was trying too hard. We ended up talking that night in the parking lot for almost an hour, and it felt like one of those easy connections people always talk about, but you rarely experience. We started dating pretty quickly after that. At first, it was great. We would cook dinner at my place, go for runs together, spend weekends exploring the city, and I felt like I had finally found someone who matched my energy. She was fun, outgoing, and had this way of making even boring stuff seem entertaining. I'll admit, I ignored a few small red flags early on. She always had stories about exes who were obsessed with her or couldn't let her go. She always emphasized how guys never appreciated her enough. At the time, I brushed it off as baggage from her past, thinking, well, we all have some. If only I had paid closer attention. Fast forward 2 years, and by the time 2023 rolled around, I was completely head over heels for her. I proposed, she said yes, and our wedding was honestly beautiful. Friends and family were there, and for those first several months of marriage, I thought I had made the best decision of my life. She moved into my house full time after we got married. She put her personal touch on things, decorating here and there, but she also liked to remind me that it felt like hers too, because she made it a home. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I thought it was normal married life talk. Things seemed good, at least on the surface. But I started noticing she spent a lot of time at work events. She worked for this mid-sized company, and her boss, let's just call him Mark, always seemed a little too friendly with her. She brushed it off and said he treated everyone that way. I'll never forget the day everything blew up. It was late one Friday afternoon. I came home earlier than usual because one of my jobs wrapped up sooner than expected. Her car was in the driveway, so I figured she was already home. When I walked in, something felt off. The living room lights were dimmed, music was playing faintly, and I could hear muffled laughter upstairs. My stomach dropped immediately, but I forced myself to walk up the stairs. When I opened the bedroom door, there they were, my wife and her boss, in my bed, in my home. The image is burned into my brain. She froze, her eyes wide, while he scrambled like some coward trying to grab his clothes. I didn't scream. I didn't throw punches. I just stood there in disbelief. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my chest. She started begging immediately, saying, "It's not what it looks like," which was absurd because it was exactly what it looked like. I walked out of the room, grabbed my keys, and left. I couldn't even process it. Later that night, when I came back, she was sitting in the living room, crying and saying she made a mistake. She wanted to go to marriage counseling. She said she didn't want to throw away what we had. I couldn't believe the audacity. The very next morning, I started calling divorce lawyers. I knew I couldn't stay with someone who did that, and I definitely wasn't going to sit in some counselor's office pretending we could rebuild after she brought another man into my home. When I told her I was filing, she laughed in my face. She said, "You're an idiot if you think you'll find someone as gorgeous as me. You'll be single forever, and good luck keeping this house. You really think a judge won't see that I've built a life here too?" That's when I realized this was going to get ugly. When the court dates finally came, She and her lawyer tried to paint this picture that she had contributed so much to the house and deserved part of it. But the reality was clear. I bought the house before I even met her. My name was the only one on the deed. Every mortgage payment came out of my bank account. Still, she cried in court, full-on waterworks. She started yelling that I didn't deserve to take the house she had gotten comfortable in. Her lawyer kept trying to argue, but the judge wasn't buying it. It was obvious she thought she was going to waltz away with half of everything, but that wasn't how it played out. Watching her break down in court was surreal. She had been so smug leading up to it, telling me I didn't stand a chance. And now here she was, sobbing in front of everyone because things weren't going her way. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. I kept my house, I kept my savings, and she got nothing but her freedom. It's crazy to me how quickly people can change when they don't get their way. The woman I thought I knew, who I married in good faith, turned into someone I barely recognized, bitter, entitled, manipulative. I know this email is already long, but I wanted to give the full picture of what happened before I send in my next one, because the story didn't end with the divorce, not even close. After the divorce papers were signed, I thought life would finally go back to normal. I was wrong. At first, I had this sense of relief. Waking up alone in my house, no drama, no arguments, no paranoia about what she was doing behind my back. I thought, this is peace. This is what I've been missing. I threw myself into fixing up the house. I repainted the guest room, worked on the backyard landscaping, even built a little fire pit for friends to come hang out. It was therapeutic, like reclaiming the space that had been tainted by betrayal. But then the messages started. She would text me from random numbers because I had blocked her main one. The first one said, "You don't get to erase me, that's my house too." I ignored it. Then came, "We need to talk. You can't just throw away a marriage like it was nothing." Still ignored. Then it turned nasty. "You're nothing without me. No woman will ever want you. You'll come crawling back." I'll be honest, those messages used to mess with my head. Even though I knew she was toxic, a part of me wondered, is she right? What if I end up alone forever? But then I'd remind myself, alone is better than living with a liar and a cheater. A few weeks after the divorce, I started noticing weird things around my house. The side gate would be unlatched when I was sure I had closed it. The garden hose was stretched out across the yard when I hadn't used it in days. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, but then one night, around midnight, my motion light in the backyard went on. I looked out the window and saw a shadow. By the time I opened the door, whoever it was had run off. Deep down, I knew it was her. It happened on a Saturday night. I had been out with a buddy watching the game, and I got home around 11:30 p.m. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a loud thud at the back of the house. At first, I thought maybe it was an animal knocking something over, but then came another thud, louder, like someone was trying to push open the back door. My heart started pounding. I grabbed the baseball bat I keep by the couch and crept toward the kitchen. That's when I heard her voice through the door. "Dustin, open the damn door. You can't keep me out of my house." I froze. It was her. I shouted back, "You need to leave. This isn't your house. The divorce is final. You don't live here anymore." Instead of leaving, she screamed, "You don't get to tell me what's mine. Let me in." Then I heard her fumbling with the doorknob, like she had actually brought a key. Thank God I had changed the locks right after the divorce. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just yelling. She was trying to break in. I knew right then I had two choices. Either open the door and risk her causing a scene inside my home, or call the cops. I chose the second. My hands were shaking as I dialed 911. I told the dispatcher, "My ex-wife is trying to break into my house. She's banging on the door right now. I'm afraid she's not going to stop." The dispatcher told me to stay inside, keep the door locked, and that officers were on their way. While I was waiting, she moved to the side of the house and started pounding on the windows. I could hear her yelling through the glass. "You don't deserve this house. You don't deserve anything. You ruined my life." It was like something out of a movie. When the police finally pulled up, lights flashing, she didn't run. She stood there in the backyard screaming at them, telling them I had stolen her home. I watched from inside as the officers tried to calm her down. Instead, she escalated, flailing her arms, refusing to step away, and yelling that I had brainwashed the judge during the divorce. One of the officers knocked on my front door to confirm the situation. I explained everything, showed him the divorce decree, showed him the deed with only my name, and he nodded. Meanwhile, out back, they were putting her in handcuffs. She was kicking, crying, yelling that this was all a misunderstanding. It was surreal. Just a few months earlier, that was my wife. And now she was being dragged away by police from the home she had once claimed was hers. She was charged with attempted breaking and entering and trespassing. Because she resisted, there were also charges for disorderly conduct. Her family reached out afterward, trying to smooth things over. Her mom called me saying, "She's just been under a lot of stress. Can't you drop the charges?" I told her flat out no. She crossed the line. This isn't about stress. This is about choices. I stuck to my guns, and it was the right decision. Looking back, I think that night was the final nail in the coffin for any lingering feelings I might have had. Before, I'll admit, a part of me sometimes wondered if we could have worked things out. But after seeing her try to force her way into my home like that, I realized she didn't respect me, my boundaries, or reality itself. I've spent the months since focusing on myself. Therapy, working out, spending time with friends. I even started dating again, not rushing, just testing the waters. And guess what? There are good women out there. Women who don't cheat. Women who don't scream at you through your own windows. So to any guy listening who's in the thick of it, don't let fear of being alone keep you chained to a toxic person. Because trust me, being alone is way better than watching your ex get hauled off in handcuffs for trying to bust into your house. The night she got arrested was supposed to be the end. In my mind, I thought, okay, she's finally crossed a line she can't come back from. Now she'll back off. I was wrong. For a couple of weeks after, things were quiet. I slept better knowing the police had actually put cuffs on her. I figured maybe the humiliation would finally sink in and she'd stay away. But instead, it seemed to light a fire under her. It started with a phone call from her older brother. I hadn't spoken to him much during our marriage, but I knew he didn't like me. He called me one night out of the blue and went off. "You ruined my sister's life. You turned the cops on her like she's some criminal when she was just trying to get her home back. You're a coward, Dustin. A real man would have handled this privately." I hung up on him. Then her mom called, crying, saying she just wanted closure. "She didn't mean to scare you. Can't you see she's hurting?" I told her flatly. "She tried breaking into my house. That's not closure. That's insanity." But the calls kept coming. Cousins, friends, even a random aunt messaging me on Facebook saying I should be ashamed for ruining a beautiful woman's future. At first, I ignored it. But eventually I realized what was happening. My ex had been spinning this story that I was the villain. In her version, I was a cruel husband who stole her house, threw her out with nothing, and sicked the cops on her out of spite. It was wild to me. She cheated. She lied. She tried to force her way back into my home, but somehow, in her mind, she was the victim. Things escalated when her family started threatening me. Her brother messaged me one day saying, "We're talking to a lawyer. You'll pay for what you did to her. You can't just ruin someone's mental health and expect no consequences." I laughed when I read it, but deep down, I felt this pit in my stomach. The idea of getting dragged back into court over nothing terrified me. I had just gotten out of that nightmare. The thought of going back made me sick. I contacted my own lawyer, the same one who handled the divorce, and told him what was happening. He reassured me. He said, "They don't have a case. They're just trying to scare you. If they try, it'll get thrown out immediately." That helped, but still, it showed me how far some people will go to avoid facing reality. After all that drama, I decided I had two choices. I could let her and her family's chaos consume me, or I could focus on rebuilding my own life. I chose the second. I started therapy. Best decision I ever made. Sitting down once a week with someone who didn't judge me, who helped me unpack everything. The betrayal, the court battles, the threats. It gave me clarity I didn't know I needed. I also started working out again, not just casually, but really pushing myself. It was partly for my mental health, partly to prove to myself that I wasn't the broken man she said I was. I reconnected with old friends I drifted from during my marriage. It's funny how cheaters isolate you. During my marriage, I spent so much time catering to her moods and her schedule that I lost touch with my own people. Now those friendships came back, stronger than before. Eventually, I dipped my toes back into dating. I'll be honest, at first, it was awkward. Every time I went on a date, part of me compared the woman to my ex, not in a longing way, but in a cautious way. Would she cheat like my ex? Would she blow up in court if things went bad? Would she try to break into my house someday? It sounds paranoid, but when you've lived through what I lived through, those thoughts creep in. Then I met someone. Let's call her Raina. She wasn't flashy like my ex. She didn't walk into a room demanding attention, but she was kind. She listened. She laughed at my dumb jokes, and most importantly, she respected boundaries. When I told her about my past, she didn't flinch. She said, "I'm sorry you went through that, but you're not defined by what she did." That stuck with me. Writing this now, I realize my story isn't just about a cheating wife. It's about survival. It's about refusing to let someone else's chaos destroy you. If I had stayed with her, I'd be living in a nightmare. If I had given in to her family's guilt trips, I'd still be stuck in her drama. If I had let fear of being alone keep me tethered, I'd never have experienced the peace I feel now. The lessons I've learned are simple but powerful. Listen to red flags early. If someone always plays the victim in every story, they'll eventually make you the villain in theirs. Protect your assets. Change your locks. Guard your savings. Get everything in writing. Don't assume love protects you. Laws and deeds do. Stand firm. Cheaters thrive on manipulation. If you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Focus on yourself. Healing doesn't come from revenge or closure. It comes from rebuilding your own life. True story. I don't know if this will ever make it on your channel, but I hope it does. Because I know there's some guy out there right now sitting in his living room, staring at his phone, wondering if he should forgive the woman who just betrayed him. To that guy, don't. Don't waste another day thinking you can fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. Don't let fear of being alone trap you in misery. Don't hand over your home, your savings, or your peace to someone who laughs in your face after cheating in your bed. You're stronger than you think. You'll survive. And one day, you'll look back, like I am now, and realize that what felt like the end was actually the beginning. I'm not done just yet, though. Hopefully this is not too long. So, exactly what happened to her after the arrest? After the break-in, she had to go to court for trespassing and disorderly conduct. I didn't even have to show up in person because the police had all the evidence they needed. She pled guilty to a lesser charge, got probation, and had to pay fines. But that wasn't the end of her problems. Remember her boss, the guy she cheated with? Yeah, that didn't last. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, he didn't stick around after the divorce. Apparently, once I filed and things got messy, he backed out quick. She thought leaving me meant she'd end up in some fairy tale romance with him, but it turns out he was just in it for the fun. After that, she started bouncing between jobs. Word got around that she had legal trouble, and people don't exactly line up to hire someone with breaking and entering on their record. Eventually, she moved back in with her mom. Her family stopped harassing me after a while. I think they finally realized they couldn't pin her downfall on me forever. Last I heard, she was working part-time retail and complaining online about how men ruined her life. It's sad, in a way, but at the same time, she made her choices. Every step of the way, she chose lies, cheating, manipulation, and chaos. And in the end, it all caught up with her. For me, the healing process took longer than I expected. Even after she was out of my life, I carried this heavy bitterness with me. I found myself replaying arguments in my head, imagining what I should have said, or fantasizing about ways to get revenge. But here's what I learned. Revenge is a trap. It keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. The real revenge is living well, moving forward, and finding peace. I kept going to therapy. My therapist helped me understand that betrayal isn't just about losing someone. It's about losing the version of yourself you were with them. I had to grieve not only my marriage, but also the man I thought I was when I said I do. That hit me hard, because I realized I wasn't the same person anymore. I was stronger, more cautious, yes, but also wiser. Now let me talk about Raina, because she's been a huge part of my healing. When I first met her, I told myself I wasn't going to rush anything. But the more time we spent together, the more I realized how different she was from my ex. She didn't need constant attention. She didn't play games. She didn't make me feel like I was walking on eggshells. She respected me. We started slow, coffee dates, hikes, cooking dinner at home. After a while, she started staying over more often, and one night, sitting by the fire pit I built after my divorce, she looked at me and said, "I feel safe with you." That one sentence meant more to me than anything my ex-wife ever said. We've now been together for over a year. I'm not saying she's the one yet. I've learned not to rush that, but I'll say this. She's shown me that love doesn't have to be chaos. Love can be steady, calm, supportive. Believe it or not, I actually ran into my ex once after everything. It was at the grocery store. I was picking up a few things, and I turned the corner to see her standing in the aisle. She looked rough, tired, stressed, like life had taken its toll. She saw me, froze, then gave me this little smirk like she wanted to act unbothered. She said, "Well, look who it is. Bet you're real proud of yourself." I just looked at her and said, "I'm proud I moved on." Then I walked away. That was the last time I saw her in person, and honestly, that was all the closure I needed. If you followed my story from the beginning, you've probably picked up on the lessons already, but let me spell them out clearly for anyone listening who might be in the thick of it. Protect yourself legally. Love doesn't hold up in court. Documents do. Get your name on the deed. Get a prenup if you can, and never assume we'll figure it out. Boundaries are everything. If someone crosses your boundaries once, they'll do it again. Don't compromise on what you know is right. Cheaters rewrite history. My ex tried to make me the villain. Yours probably will too. Don't waste energy fighting the narrative. Just live your truth. Healing takes work. Therapy, exercise, friends, faith, whatever it takes, put the work in. Don't just sit around waiting for time to fix you. There is life after betrayal. I never thought I'd be happy again. Now I laugh every day. I love again. I have peace. And if I can find it, so can you. True story. Thank you for giving me a place to share all of this. When I first wrote in, I thought I was just venting. But telling my story, piece by piece, has helped me close the book on that chapter of my life. If there's one message I want to leave, it's this. Don't let someone else's bad choices define your future. You are not what they did to you. You are not their betrayal. You are not their lies. You're more than that. I lost my wife. I almost lost my peace, and I came close to losing myself. But I didn't. I fought back. I healed, and I rebuilt. And if you're listening to this right now, and you're in the middle of your own nightmare, just know it gets better. Not overnight, not easily, but it gets better. That was very therapeutic. Thanks for letting me share, Dustin. Hey, True, consider this a kind of PS follow-up where I add in the pieces I left out, along with a proper thank you to you and your channel. Because honestly, putting my story into words and having even the chance that it might be read aloud has done more for me than I thought possible. This is going to be another long one. I want to give you the full picture, every detail, every corner of my thoughts that I didn't unpack before. If you decide to read it, just know I'm grateful. If not, I'm still glad I wrote it. It feels like another step toward fully moving on. When I first wrote to you, I jumped right into the story about catching my ex-wife cheating with her boss. That moment was the center of the storm, but what I left out were the subtle little cracks in the wall before that. The little signals I chose to ignore. Looking back now, I realize I was in denial for a long time. She used to tell me she had to stay late at work more often than what seemed normal. At the time, I didn't question it much. I figured, hey, we all have deadlines, and sometimes things take longer than expected. I wanted to be the supportive husband who didn't nag or accuse. I thought that was what trust was. But the reality is, trust doesn't mean ignoring patterns that don't add up. I remember one night, probably 6 months before I caught her, she came home with a new perfume scent I'd never smelled on her before. It wasn't even subtle. It was this heavy, floral kind of scent, not something she would normally wear. I asked her about it, and she brushed it off, saying a coworker had a sample bottle, and she just tried it out. I bought it at the time because I didn't want to think she'd lie to me over something so small. But now I know better. That was likely the boss she was sleeping with, and she was probably wearing something he liked. I left that detail out in my first emails, but it matters because it shows how much I wanted to keep believing in us, even when my gut was quietly telling me something was wrong. Another thing I didn't go into enough detail about was the house. When I bought my home in 2021, it was one of the proudest moments of my life. I was 29 at the time, single, and I'd worked hard to save up for that down payment. It wasn't the biggest house in the world, but it was mine. When my ex-wife and I started dating, she made a lot of comments about how nice it was that I had my own place. At the time, I thought she was just being appreciative. But in hindsight, I think she saw my house as part of the package, like dating me came with the lifestyle she wanted. I remember the first time she stayed over for the weekend. She walked around like she was already the queen of the castle, pointing out where she'd put this piece of furniture or how she'd decorate this wall. It seemed cute at the time, but now I see it differently. She wasn't just imagining life with me. She was imagining ownership. That's why, during the divorce, she lost it in court when the judge made it clear the house was mine. She had convinced herself that living there for a short time gave her some kind of right to it. She wanted to break me down and take it, but the paperwork was clear. The house was mine before we married, and she wasn't entitled to it. I didn't share enough about how freeing that felt. Walking out of court that day, knowing the home I'd worked so hard for was still mine, was one of the few victories in all this. I briefly mentioned her breakdown in my first email, but I didn't really give the full picture. When the judge denied her claims to the house, she literally stood up and shouted, "This isn't fair! I made that house a home!" The whole courtroom froze. Her lawyer tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't stop. She started crying, then yelling at me directly. "You don't deserve it! You don't even know how to take care of a home! I made it livable!" It was surreal. I'd never seen her lose her composure like that before. The woman who used to pride herself on being polished and in control completely unraveled in front of strangers. The judge had to call for a short recess because she wouldn't stop. It was embarrassing, sure, but it was also eye-opening. That was the mask slipping. That was the real her, entitled, bitter, and furious that her plan didn't work. I also didn't go deep enough into what happened after she got arrested for trying to break into my house. When the police took her away, I felt this strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness because, at one point, this was the woman I thought I'd spend forever with. Relief because I finally saw consequences catching up to her. She ended up being charged with trespassing and attempted burglary. Nothing super heavy, but still enough to give her a record. Her lawyer tried to argue it down, claiming she was just trying to retrieve personal items, but the cops had body cam footage showing her with tools to pry the lock. That killed her case. What I left out was how many people reached out to me afterward. Neighbors, mutual friends, even one of her cousins messaged me saying, "I'm sorry you had to go through this." Apparently, her behavior was becoming more erratic in other parts of her life too. Losing the marriage, losing in court, and then the arrest, it all piled up on her. I don't take joy in her downfall, but I can't lie. I feel vindicated. For so long, she tried to convince me that I was the one who'd lose in the end. Turns out, she lost herself. This part is important. I wouldn't have had the courage to write all this if it weren't for your channel. I found True Story during one of my darkest nights after the divorce. I was sitting alone in my living room, staring at the walls, feeling like a fool for trusting her. Then YouTube recommended me one of your videos, a story about another man who caught his wife cheating. Listening to that guy talk about his pain, his shock, and eventually his healing, I felt something shift in me. I wasn't alone. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't the only one this had happened to. That's why I wanted to write in. Not for pity, not even really for advice, but because maybe my story could be that for someone else. Maybe some guy out there will hear this and realize he's not the only one either. So thank you. Whether you read my emails or not, thank you for making a space where men can share these stories and not feel so isolated. I've said a lot about the past, so let me end with the present and future. Right now, I'm focused on rebuilding. I even started going to therapy, which has been surprisingly helpful. Do I still think about her sometimes? Of course. Do I still feel that sting of betrayal? Absolutely. But the difference now is I don't let it define me. If she thought I'd crumble without her, she was wrong. I'm still standing. And honestly, I think I'm stronger than I've ever been. That's all for now. I know this was long, maybe the longest one yet, but it felt good to get it all out. Consider this the final chapter, the last pieces of the puzzle I needed to put on paper. Thank you again, True Story. If you read this, know that you've got one more subscriber out here who genuinely appreciates what you do. Take care to Dustin.